A query can be used to retrieve data from different tables and combine them in one dataset. Consequently, you will need to link the different tables. A query translates into efficient SQL queries that are run on the Business Central database. A query can be used to export the data to an XML or CSV file, but it can also be used as a data source for APIs and Power BI reports.
Hii ni Tech na Msangi ya jishinde.com.
So for SQL enthusiasts, let's just define a query first, and then we'll look at what it maps to in SQL. And I'll define my query, call it the bank query. Then I want a normal query. There are two types. We can use one for normal and or API query. And the snippet gives us elements for the query, the data item, and we do have different types of, we can either define a column or a filter. So let's look at what it means. When we use a column, we are basically using the select. That is saying select. So here the table is bank account. So what we are doing here, we're doing now select number from bank account. Then here, if we wanted a filter, we can choose a field that can be used as a filter, maybe the description or something, or the shortcut. Okay, let's say description. How many fields are there in the bank account? Bank code, for instance. So the from is the data item. So from bank account. So when we say the data item, we already have the bank account. And then the join type, we do have different join types, and the join types will be defined. Since we can combine several data items into a single data set, it means we can have a bank account and sort of a bank account ledger entry, a table that is related to the bank account. It will be a single data set, but we have to state how it is linked. So that is the first item, and we do have now the bank account ledger entry. And in this case, they'll say that we have to define a data item link. And data item link is like in SQL Server, you're saying on. And the data item link has to be the bank account number will link to the bank account number. Then once we have defined our link, we have the where, which can be defined by the data item table filter property or column filter properties in columns. So here the column can have a column filter if we want where maybe if remember in a query we are specifying exactly which fields should be fetched. That's why it's so efficient. In an example of these master tables, which contains maybe over 100 fields, you are only selecting 3 or 4 fields. I know, you'll be like, yes, Francis Msangi, you are telling me to use queries, yet I could be using the set load fields when I'm fetching my data. Why do I have to go to the query? We need to have these different options, but the beauty here is because you have one data set, especially for analysis, it really makes a lot of sense when you have one table with combined with maybe the bank name, the bank account ledger entry, and all that. So for data that needs to be analyzed, it really makes it easier when you present it in form of a query. Okay, so we can have filters in that way with the where, with the data item table filter or the column filter. Then the having is where when we set the column filter property of the columns, and filters when aggregations is used, group by automatically active for each column item when aggregation is used, and then order by query property. Then the top is the for top number of rows, similar to how SQL Server is done. So I'll share a link to Microsoft Learn on a training module for this. But now for now, we can just do a quick overview of the query data type. And at least the benefit here is having to fetch only a few fields that you need. So here we do have the bank account and the bank account ledger entry, which is linked with the data item link. And we haven't defined the SQL Join type, but we'll do that in a few. And before we do that, let's preview our query after adding the document number, the amount, and the description. So the default object that is running in launch.json is the bank account query 5012. We will sort of run it just now and consider what it does to us when we run it. And here we are with our bank account table being run, giving us that yes, this is our query with Giro Bank. So this is how our data has come to be. We have the number because this is the only column that we have, and then we have the entry number, document number, amount, description. So a data set that is really giving us everything that we want. So without defining a join type, our data set is sort of a cross join, because we can see like this data bank, this bank WWB transfers, and there's one here. This one known as Mpia, they do not have any entries. That's why there's an entry for the parent data item, but there's no entry for the child data item. So let's define an SQL join type. SQL join type, and say that in a join, then we will see the impact of having in a join as our SQL data type. It's SQL join type. And if you have used SQL Server, I know you're smiling, because inner join is used there when you want that there should be a matching entry between the parent and the child data item for the data item to be displayed. So we have eliminated the MPIA and the WWB operating, Worldwide Bank operating, and no, it was the other one. There's one that was just before this USD. So we have eliminated two banks by the inner join. So what if we want to display, I think the default is left outer join, because it definitely displays the bank account without considering either it has a child data item or not. And we can go ahead and be able to run this, but let me define a trigger. Where is it? For on before open, there's something that I want to track. I want to track the elements. Okay. You mean the trigger is not supposed to be? Let's get, there's no IntelliSense T-query again, quickly. The trigger is right at the end. I don't know why it's not generating the IntelliSense. Let's just fetch it from this side and set it here. Paste it here. Okay, this thing today wants to trigger on before open, the IntelliSense for the query was lost, and I don't know why. But we just want to have a message, sort of a message, that will basically have a breakpoint and see what will happen when we are running the query, and there is no trigger for on after open, so that we see. But the default is sort of the left outer join, left outer join. That is the point. So the resulting dataset contains every record from the upper data item, even if a record does not have a matching value in the lower data item for the fields that are linked in the data item link property. So if we are to run this again, if we are to start debugging and see what is happening, please run. So there is a breakpoint, that's why it's stopping. Just put a breakpoint and forgot. So does our debug have anything in terms of fetching the query? So we have the last executed SQL statements, and we can go to the last. Select. So this is the query that was executed, and it is okay. I want to copy it. Okay. So we are having entry number, bank account, amount, description, and then if you look at that query, there is the left outer join bank account ledger entry. Just by adding that part of left outer join, we are getting a similar query with left outer join in SQL. So let's move forward. Let's look at the latest SQL, and we are having, so it is the same, but I don't know why top one is there and I haven't defined top one. Yet we haven't read this query, but this is the point. So when you have an join there, then we are able to get each join. Okay, wait, this trigger runs for each query. We never tested this for each query that is run. So let me toggle and continue, and we should have our bank account with our mpia displayed. Oh my goodness. So this message will just give us a run for a time, but now we do have our WWB transfers back, and this other one back, this other one mpia. So that is the left outer join. What about the right outer join as the last one to test? We have other joins, but this is the last one. Will contain every record from the lower data item, even if a record does not have a matching value in the upper data item. So if we have something in the bank account query, bank account ledger entry, which does not have a matching value in the bank account table, then it will be generated by this. So the only way to test this is to have a bank account ledger entry inserted, and I don't know if we have that, so we might not be able to test this, but that is the point with that join. And then we have another cross join, full outer join, and then yeah, we can have a look at that. But inner join, the one that we looked at, will contain records from data item tables where a match is found between the fields that are linked by the data item link property of the lower data item. So if there is a match found between the fields that are linked by the data item link property, then we are able to get the values. So yeah, the query is something that we can consider using, because this is how we fetch a query. Let me create a quick report that is a processing only report. I don't know if I have a range to use. Let me call it my report. But again, no dataset, no request page. What we need is just a data item that no data item. We don't even need a data item. We just need a trigger, no even layout, and we say just processing only is true. So how do we read a query differently from the other record? The way we read the record, there's a difference in how we read a query. Maybe if I'd advise, if you have a big data set for the records, instead of using the set load fields, you can use a query to fetch information, especially when you don't need to modify, you don't need to do any insertion, modification, then query will be appropriate. So here is a query defined, and we are calling it the bank account query. Then, so first, we have a method to open the query. First, we need to open it. It will return an error if it's not able to open the query, if you have defined fields that are not supposed to be there. Then after opening the query, so in a record example, for instance, if we have a record, what we'll do with a record is sort of say that this is the bank account record. We'll have reset, bank account or set range, a number, I don't know, something like this. And then we have a repeat until, so the moment we can even just say bank account dot find first, and it will be available for us to get the record. But while the record uses the repeat, in a query we'll use the while the bank account query dot read do begin, and then we can now be able to use the values in the query, the amount, the description, the document number, entry number, and all that. So they will be looped, and we can be able to fetch the values if we want, and we can be able to use them here. So that's it for how we can be able to use a query. And if you have other use cases for the query, you can comment below, or you can suggest maybe something else that hasn't been covered here in the video, but I'll share a link if you want to dive deep into queries. But there's a huge benefit in performance because of how the query fetches information for the columns that are only needed. I will see you in the next video. May God bless you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss the next one.